From the WACH Fox studios, this is On Point on WACH Fox with Cynthia Arnie.
Good morning and welcome to On Point on WACH Fox. As usual, it's a pleasure to bring you the show every week, and we do hope that you'll take the opportunity to tune into the radio show On Point with Cynthia Arnie, heard every Sunday evening, 6 p.m. on 101.3 The Big DM. This week on Point on WACH, graduation and the rising tuition costs. May is graduation month. Here in South Carolina, thousands of graduates will get their degrees and begin their efforts to launch careers and put those degrees to work. No doubt the sluggish economy has many 2012 graduates a little bit anxious about finding a job that matches personal career expectations. Add to that the burden of student loans, and you're looking at a difficult situation. Plus, the continuing increase of tuition for colleges and universities has even high school seniors wondering whether putting themselves in so much debt will be worth it after 4 years. You know, that's interesting, Brian, as we take a look at that. So while we are looking at the rising costs, we also know that a number of people are asking, is it worth it?
Is it worth it? But the research does show you that over time, over your career, you will make more money with at least a bachelor's degree than you would just with the high school diploma. So certainly. The research would back up the fact that it's worth that cost. Yes, you will have a burden on you if you have to pay back those student loans, but you would hope in the long run it's going to be the best for everybody.
Well, we do know that lots and lots of people are going to be celebrating during the season.
Sure,
we thought it would be important to meet some graduates and also to kind of talk about these rising costs. And as we look on the national scene, even in Washington, the debate is there about the rising costs of education. You talk to your friends who have little ones, and they are a little bit scared of what it's going to cost in the future to educate somebody.
Often and early, so to make sure it's there when the little ones get to be 18, 19 years old.
Absolutely. So. Well, we've got Dr. Helen Otero from the College of Continuing Education with Benedict College here with us, along with Sue Berkowitz, and Sue is with Appleseed Legal Justice Center. And Sue, I often call you the advocate for the people. And as we look at this important issue, it's a timely time to actually have the conversation, because while a number of people are celebrating because it is graduation time, a number of people are also looking at those wallets and wondering if they're going to be able to pay for it.
It is. Student loan debt is becoming just an oppressive burden for so many people. I talk to new grads from law school or from undergrad, and they come to me, and I'm in public interest work, and they can't even afford to work for me because their student loan debt burden is much higher than what we can pay in the public sector in nonprofits. And I think that it can become a very stressful time, and when students are trying to figure out how they maintain what they need to do to keep up with this debt, they need to also remember that you can't borrow your way out of debt. So while you have the student loan debt, you need to make sure that while you're trying to figure out how you get yourself through the next months and years, that you budget, you determine what are your needs versus what are your wants, and what you can afford to live on, and not take on additional luxuries. And that's hard for young people. We want what we want, and we're going to have to postpone a lot more things now because of that additional burden.
A lot of people hesitate to take out a loan to pay for college. What is your message, Dr. Terrell, when people are looking at how they're going to pay for what it is they want to do with regards to education?
While Sue is absolutely correct, sometimes the dangling of the carrot of the loan makes them want to get this so they can buy that car, but that car note repeats itself for 60 months or better. And so what I generally tell students is take no more than what it's going to cost to pay your tuition and fees. Anything extra needs to go back, simply because the interest rate compounds until you graduate. And then it compounds more once you graduate while you're paying it back. And so a small loan of $2,500 can be $5,000 by the time you graduate from college. And so taking only what you have to have, and then if you have to work, then let that pay for your regular expenses. But again, that carrot really becomes enticing to 18 to 21-year-olds who have no other source of income. And it helps families because they don't have to try and scrimp a few extra dollars to send to my child while they're at school. And so it has its advantages, but the disadvantages far outweigh it.
So Brian, what they are talking about, was interesting to me to realize that people get the loan and they pay what is due to the school, but if they're eligible for $4,000 more, they'll take the $4,000 and pocket it and live
use it on
that.
something else. Which,
Yeah, that's not real smart though.
no, it is not very smart, but like she said, the money is quite attractive to someone who's 18, 19 years old, maybe never had cash in their pocket before, and now they got this extra money laying around. Yes, smart thing to do is make sure it's there for the next year's round of tuition as well. But another question to ask too is when they're applying for these loans too, make sure they know what they want to do when they get to school. Because I was 18 once, and I didn't know what I was doing when I first got to college. So you want to make sure,
sport.
you want to make sure that your money is being well spent too. You want to make sure that they have their career path mapped out.
What I must add is that our financial aid counselors are so well trained from the federal level as well as within institutions, within cadre of institutions. And this is a constant conversation with students prior to taking these loans. And again, prior to graduation, reminding them this is where you are, this is what you've accumulated. So there's a constant watchdog, basically, within each institution that tries to help students understand. And unfortunately, we don't get through to all of them immediately. But we do what we can do to try and help students understand what they're doing with this money.
I wonder what the message ought to be to students with the sluggish economy right now in terms of what their expectations are. Unless you're coming out of the 4-year program with your bachelor's and going straight into graduate school, most students don't really have a concrete plan.
Well, it's a tough economy out there. There are jobs that are starting to come back, but they're coming back slow. And I think the other thing we need to think about is jobs aren't paying what we thought they were going to pay. I think people and young people in college had expectations that their salaries were going to be at a certain rate or a certain amount, and in fact, businesses, as they're tentatively sticking their toe back in the water of bringing people on, recognize that the ball's in their court and they don't have to pay quite as much, and if you're not getting quite as much, that doesn't mean you don't owe the amount on your loan. And you need to remember that because you're told you owe a certain amount, the full amount may not change, but if your income is much less than you had anticipated, and I think it always is, that you can renegotiate what your payment may be for a while, and you need to do that because not paying can have real dire consequences versus trying to figure out how to provide some payment.
Brian, we want to ask Dr. Terrell and Sue to stick around. I kind of want to have the conversation too about the proprietary schools, because there have been some talk out there about whether or not people are actually getting what they pay for.
Are they meeting the needs? Yeah.
That's right. Is it meeting the need? When we come back, we're going to continue our conversation about graduation and the rising cost of tuition. Stay tuned.
You're watching On Point on WACH Fox with Cynthia Arnie on Columbia's own WACH Fox.
We know that we need reform. Tuition increases are not the way to fund public education in the future in this state. That will come on the backs of the working class students and families in South Carolina. We ask you to support this resolution.
Well, that was USC President Dr. Harris Bastides just a few days ago, in fact, talking to a Senate panel on higher education, urging lawmakers to give more money to state schools that educate more South Carolinians, in-state students. He says they should be given credit for things like that, for performance, for accountability, and doing the most good for the people who live inside of our borders. So we'll see if that happens. But it appears that he did get that support. That resolution did get some support.
Yeah, the rising cost of tuition, and it's just on the lips of so many people. And you're right, you can't pay for it just by raising tuition costs. We do have to have. And
there have been some spikes too at his university, USC Columbia, where the highest tuition spike in the last 4 or 5 years is somewhere around 7%. They want to get that back down to 2 and 3%. Maybe as soon as this fall, but is that feasible?
Sure.
Given the economy.
Sure. Yeah. And you're right, Brian, given the economy, because what happens is everything costs more. And as the colleges and universities have to pay more for goods and services that they have to purchase. We
all got to pay for things.
Then we all got to pay for things, and bottom lining everything is really important. So we'll stay tuned to that. And we got lots of people in our city, this week and next week because of graduation.
Yes,
so it's great. And I know that you've got people coming on campus at Benedict College because of it, and the whole city. the university, as Dr. Pastides was talking about then. We've got Sue Berkowitz from Appleseed Legal Justice with us, along with Dr. Helen Otero from Benedict College Continuing Education, and we welcome both of you all here. But we teased the fact before we went to break that we wanted to talk about proprietary schools and how oftentimes they do get a bad rap from a number of people. There are articles everywhere that question whether or not the cost of the education is on par with the degree that you receive and the opportunities that accompany the degree. And so, Sue, I know as a clearinghouse of sort that you get complaints of all kinds, and I would imagine you get these as well.
Yes, over the years we've had numerous complaints. And really the biggest concern that I have is that the students that enroll in a lot of these schools are enticed to enroll in these schools for the very thing that we talked about earlier, is they're told, oh, you don't have to worry, you don't have to pay for it now, encouraged to get the student loan, the tuition is paid, money's given to the student and put it in the student's pocket, and the student really wasn't ready to go to school. I've talked to people who've gone to certain trade schools where they didn't have even the background to have taken the core or original courses. I've talked to people who have gone to like truck driving school where they were not suited for it. They may not have had the child care they needed to be able to make it to the classes and didn't make it. But the bottom line is, once you take out that loan,
You owe it.
you owe it. And that school,
Whether you pass or not.
oh, absolutely, whether you get a degree or not. And there are certain regulations through the Federal Department of Education that talks about schools who enroll students when there isn't any likelihood the student really is capable to fulfill what's needed for that particular curriculum or capable of following through with the classes, that the school itself could be blamed. And those are the ones that I have dealt with.
Wow, it's interesting because Dr. Terrell, I can imagine you see those students after they've messed up like that and got all that money and want to come back as adults, and you go to looking into their financial aid portfolio, sometimes there's some little blemishes in there.
Oh, there's some dings, and many of them face default issues which would prevent them from re-enrolling in school to complete the degree once they've become more mature. It's not impossible to get back on track. Most people just don't realize how to get back on track. On virtually every campus, I would say, there are persons who are targeted to help assist you with the steps to get back on track and out of default on student loans so that you can at least apply and receive whatever aid you qualify for. And so that generally helps most of my students who may have had some issues the first time around as traditional students, and then when they come back as non-traditional students. It helps them a lot to do that, but that again, you need to seek that person out on your campus and find out who that is through financial aid.
Well, we're going to have to say thank you to you, Sue Berkowitz, and
thank
you,
you very
Dr.
much.
Terrell, for helping us. When we come back, we're going to talk to some non-traditional students who will really tell you they know the value of the college education. So we want you guys to stay tuned. We've got some really interesting students that we want you to meet.
You're watching On Point on WACH Fox with Cynthia Arnie on Columbia's own WACH Fox.
Welcome back to OnPoint on WACH Fox. Today we're celebrating May as graduation month, and while there are many celebrating, there are also a lot of people who are anxious about their future.
Absolutely.
We've got Lisa Evans and Derek Pugh. They are 2012 graduates from Benedict College's Continuing Education, and you all understand all too well how important it is to maximize the resources that you got. Now, you all will be the first to admit you're non-traditional students.
Of course.
You went back to school.
Yes, ma'am.
How happy are you to be 2012 graduates?
Woo.
Woo, woo, woo.
Can't be put in words, right?
Totally excited. Yeah.
Totally excited. Well, you heard the segment that we did, that Brian and I did before, about the rising cost of education.
Correct.
And now, as you all are 2012 graduates and about to live the good life as a result of it, what can you say about that? Start with you, Derek, and then you, Lisa.
Well, part of the problem with that I ran into when I was a traditional student was I did the partying thing and I hung out and wasted money. And then when I came back as a non-traditional student, I had to adjust my lifestyle and do the right thing, and I appreciated the money better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you have achieved professionally in your career, and now you want a degree to do what?
Absolutely, just to move on and to progress within my chosen career field. It was very important to me. I have been blessed to have had some terrific opportunities over the years, but always reached that point to felt like you couldn't reach for that higher level position because you didn't quite complete that degree to be in a position where you can compete with the other individuals that were moving forward. So it was really an important thing and something that I felt like was very unfinished and just I have a total sense of empowerment and of accomplishment at this point. Just really excited
She's
about
beaming,
Yes,
right?
she is. She's very proud. She should be.
beaming.
She should be because
Absolutely.
you know I would imagine that there's probably a level of fear, no matter how old you are when you go back to school, whether you're 25, 21, because those are that you're past the traditional high school entrant into school. So, what was it that made you think I got to go back? I got to do this?
Well, for me, I was fortunate enough to already be in a career.
Yeah.
And to me, finishing my degree would make me more marketable as far as moving up the ladder to make my career even better.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing that I encountered. Just getting to the point where you just can't make that move to go for the higher level positions, and knowing that it's something that you actually have to do to compete, to be able to compete with the younger students that are coming out of college, for sure.
The economy is real sluggish. Would you be
Absolutely.
anxious if you were a traditional student today, graduating at 22 years old in a sluggish economy with $40,000 in debt?
Absolutely. And I see that. I actually work for a staffing company here in Columbia area, and so I see young people that are just coming out of college that just don't know what they want to do. I've interviewed people that say, well, I got this degree in this particular field and I just decided that I don't like it. $40,000 later, I just don't like this career field. So actually focusing on that's something that I don't think that I did initially, although I did stay somewhat in my field. I think coming back as a non-traditional student, you have I don't know, there's a maturity level there. You do realize the value of a dollar, and you think about that money and how that money and to use that money more wisely at this point.
It's amazing the people that I've encountered that have master's degrees that sell furniture.
Absolutely.
That have biology degrees that work at Walmart. And not saying those aren't good jobs, but
It's not what they intended.
Exactly,
Absolutely.
exactly. And with the cost of education, working those type of jobs, it's no way possible that you can make the payments to pay that money back.
And that's one of the things that Ms. Berkowitz alluded to a few minutes ago, Brian, when she said that oftentimes when people come to work in the not-for-profit arena, the salaries that they command just out of school aren't oftentimes enough money to actually make a real big dent in those student loans.
And they might be surprised, what, they're not paying me $1 million a year to do this? I mean, a lot of young people really, I don't know that they have.
At least 45.
They might not have the grasp on reality that you're not making this big money. You're not going to be, have a yacht in in big houses.
True.
Yeah.
And you've
Yeah.
had
True.
students sit and I've had them sit in front of me and say, well, it just wasn't worth it, and start thinking that going to college was really not in their best interest, because coming out in the sluggish economy and them not being able to move into their chosen career field and make the money that they wanted to be able to pay back the loans, that pressure there is incredible.
So it is relevant to you. You do understand the question then that some even high school students are asking now, do I borrow the money to go to school, and will it be worth it after 4 years?
Absolutely.
For you guys, it is worth it, and I'd venture to say for most people the answer ought to be yeah, but people are still asking that question.
Yeah, people are still asking a question. It's funny, I had a conversation with some friends of mine that are graduates of college, and we jokingly said, man, they sold us the American dream. You just go to college and boom, you make a lot of money. And it's way more to it than that. It's way
A
more
lot
to
of it depends on us
Right.
and the things that we do with the newfound knowledge and information that we have
Absolutely.
and the exposure and everything. And speaking of that, we've got 2 more graduates that we're going to talk to. First of all, congratulations.
Thank you very
guys.
much.
Thank you.
Well
Thank you
earned.
very much.
2012 graduates. As it's so exciting. I can see, look at you guys, you're just so excited. But when we come
reached
back,
their goal.
we're gonna talk to 2 additional non-traditional students who also are beaming with pride
And they should
about
be.
their upcoming graduation. You guys stay tuned.
You're watching On Point on WACH Fox with Cynthia Arnie on Columbia's own WACH Fox.
Welcome back to OnPoint on Watch. Brian McConkey and I are here talking to Brian Ward and Chadwick Screen. Welcome you guys to OnPoint on Watch Fox.
Thank
You guys are 2 additional non-traditional students, and now you're Lieutenant Ward. Congratulations.
Thank
Tell us
you.
about your commissioning.
It was great. It was a commission done at the University of South Carolina, which is partnered with Benedict College to have their reserve officer training course. And it was just a good deal. We had about 300 family members and friends come down. So everyone got to see people take their oath of commitment to the Army to kind of give a little back to the nation for what they've received so far.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your service. And Brian, I need to tell you that Brian's in the top 20% and got a distinguished award as a result of being in the upper echelon of your class. Talk about that.
Well, what it is they do a ranking or order of merit list with all the cadets in the nation, which this year was just slightly over 6,500. And luckily, my program in general, there was about 5 or 6 of us, so just slightly over 25% of the cadets between ROTC and Benedict actually placed in the top 20% of cadets across the nation.
Wow. So. Well, congratulations to you.
Yeah.
And as we hear Brian talk about his time at Benedict College, you two are one of those upcoming graduates from the Benedict College continuing education area, and how delighted are you that you went back to school?
I'm so excited, happy that I had a second opportunity. I kind of blew the first one, but just happy that I had another opportunity to have a chance to make it in this world.
What were some of the mistakes, I guess, made the first time around? Was it like what the last fella said?
I think it's just the era of youth and taking a lot of things for
granted.
granted.
The era of youth.
Yeah. I think
taking
you're right.
things for granted.
Yes. Yes.
You think the money's going to keep on coming?
That's
We
right.
were all that age at one point.
That's right.
Did you ever get afraid that because the tuition costs were going up that maybe it was going to be priced out of your league?
Right. Yeah, that is a major part of that. But when you're young, you don't take it so serious. You're looking at what's coming back to you and not what you're actually spending, and you're going to have to pay that back one day.
And what about in your case, Brian?
In my case, fortunately, the GI Bill covered most of my, because I was been enlisted in the military prior to coming back to college. But I think one of the things is if I had taken a look at what the student loans actually offered and thought about, taking only what I needed at the time, it wouldn't have seemed like such a great chunk of money that might have kind of overwhelmed me and discouraged me in the first place from starting school earlier. And I think one of the biggest things is people get caught up with the pricing. And again, you flash some cash in front of an 18-year-old, such as an enlistment bonus or something like that, and they'll take that in hand over the long-term goal of getting the degree. And I think, if we can just get them to focus on the long run, what's going to be beneficial is the knowledge as opposed to just the short-term green in pocket.
Chad, what are some of the things that you know now that you didn't know then?
Me paying that money back personally. Thought that fell on my parents.
Oh,
somebody else. Yeah.
2, that I was going to get old one day.
How cute is that? So it was somebody else's responsibility.
Right. I just believed that it wasn't mine. You told me to go to college, so you're going to pay that bill.
That's right. That's right. And coming back this time around and recognizing what's in front of you now, do you have a career now that you're comfortable moving in?
I think I like it a lot. I work with my father at a local law firm here in Columbia, and that's the direction that I want to travel in.
And you're managing his office?
That's correct.
So is law school in your future?
It is definitely in the future.
Oh,
He's got the bug now. He's got the education
I've
bug.
been bitten.
That's really, really good. And your future plans, Brian?
I'm attending flight school after this. In a couple weeks, actually, I report. So I plan to do that, finish out my career in the military, and then just find something fun to do on the civilian side afterwards.
Brian, we wanted to do this because there are a number of traditional students, and we congratulate all of those folks that are graduating in May.
For them,
but with the sluggish economy, a number of people have found really good benefit in going back to school as non-traditional students and finishing what they started. And we found that at the College of Continuing Education at Benedict College, a number of non-traditional students,
They're doing just
which
fine.
is really interesting, really an interesting thing. And you're a real non-traditional student.
Slightly.
Well, you're on a HBCU, historically black college and university, and that's got to be a little bit different for you, and it must make you kind of stand out.
Easy to find on campus usually, yes. But no, it's just been a great experience, and I think that's one of the things that might actually unintentionally dissuade people from even thinking about the School of Continuing Education. But even though it's a historically black college, doesn't mean that that's the only people on campus. And if you're ready to learn and you want a good environment, then by all means, everyone's invited, and it's an open door.
And the closing comment from you, Chad?
I'm just
congratulations on your efforts.
Happy to be graduating, and I think more people should go back to school.
Absolutely. Well, Brian, we've done another good show. I feel really good about the opportunities that we kind of put out there in front of people, particularly people who might be looking at fellows like this and say, we want to go back to school, but we're not quite sure.
It can be done, because some people maybe get to a certain age and say, no, I can't do that. It's not for me. Well, yes, it is. It is for you. We've talked to 4 people who, who did it just fine.
You know, and when we look at all the folks that are out there and the graduations that are happening this week and next week, we just want to say congratulations to all of those folks, and well done, you know, well done, because there's one thing about it, sticking to a program and completing a program is something to feel really intrinsically good about. Gives you a good feeling on the inside.
I know, I felt good when I got that.
Yeah, well, it's always a pleasure to share the sofa with my favorite anchor, and so that's it for this edition of On Point on WACH Fox. Please send us your comments and suggestions to onpointwithcynthia.com. Go to the Facebook page, On Point with Cynthia Hardy. Leave your comments, like us on that page, and follow us at Twitter at Radio Talk. We believe when you're informed, you're empowered, and once empowered, you are on point. Brian and I are going to see you next week.